Hello, my name is Andy Lin. Welcome to my final presentation. So the topic that I chose is Buddhism and the afterlife. The reason that I chose this topic is because I think it's a very interesting topic that has many details and layers to what it really is, and I just think it's really interesting and I would like to learn more about it. Alright, so we're going to begin now. Here we go. So some of the overviews and main points I'll be talking about in this PowerPoint. I would like to discuss the afterlife and provide an overview of Buddhist traditions and beliefs. I would also like to explain in detail the key characteristics of the six realms. I would also like to explain nirvana and how to achieve this level of enlightenment. I'm also going to review bodhisattvas, what they are, what they do, how to become one. I'm also going to explain some key differences between Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. And finally, we will review the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and just different kinds of Buddhisms. After that, we will review some funeral traditions and the remembrance ceremonies. Alright, and one of our last topics, we're going to compare Buddhism to other religions, such as Christianity. Alright, so this is the Buddhism views on death and the afterlife. So, death. We believe that humans change constantly. Everything is impermanent and suffering is inevitable. So this means basically, as long as you live, you're going to suffer. And that's why the ultimate goal of Buddhists is to get out of life. Yes, so the only way out of suffering is to become enlightened and escape the cycle. And this cycle is called nirvana, the place that we want to be is called nirvana. And I will go more into detail about that later. So Buddhists believe that death is a natural part of the life cycle and that it simply leads to rebirth. To Buddhism, death is not the end of a life. It is merely the end of the body that we have in this life. But our spirit will continue and they will seek a new body and life depending on the karma, which we will discuss later. Alright, and where one will be born is a result of the past and the accumulation of positive and negative karma. So it could either be bad or good, heaven and hell, but it's not that. But yeah. Alright. And after that, after you die, it's the afterlife. So according to Buddhism, after death, one is either reborn into a new body, reincarnated, or he enters nirvana, which we talked about earlier. So nirvana is only for those who have achieved spiritual enlightenment and chooses to escape this cycle. So the cycle that we're talking about, the cycle of rebirth, is called samsara. One is reborn into one of the six realms. And it's just a constant cycle. Alright, so there's this quote that Buddha said. So Buddha compares life to lighting successive candles using the flame of the preceding candle. So let's say you generated a lot of good karma, you lived a very bright life and shined and had a lot of religious merit, helped a lot of people. You'll have a big flame, and then that means that maybe you could go into another even bigger flame. But let's say you have a weak flame, a dying flame. You may go back to a lesser realm. Alright, so what we believe is that life is suffering. Death is simply a return to life. This is why the ultimate goal is to stop this cycle and enter nirvana and finally be at peace. Alright? So after dying, so this is something that Buddhist schools teach, but not all Buddhist schools. So this is something called the intermediate state. So this basically means that when you die, you're not immediately reincarnated into another realm. There is a transitional period. So let me go through the text. In Buddhism, the process of moving from one life to the next involves a consciousness leaving your body at the time of death and taking on an intermediate state. This state is described as a very subtle form of being in which you have not entered the body of your next reincarnation, but in this state, Buddhists believe that you are propelled by your karma and your state of mind at the time of death into your next reincarnation. The process of finding a new birth can happen almost immediately or take up to 49 days. This is called the Bardo, which I will cover on the next slide. Alright, so moving on. Alright, so a Bardo. A Bardo is taught in many schools of Buddhism. However, it's Tibetan Buddhism, which was the school that introduced Bardo. Some sectors of Buddhism do not believe in this transitional phase at all. but some very strongly teach it. Alright, so this sequence of bottles can be very quick or last up to 49 days. So going into the first bottle. This bottle is the first stage where a person finally realizes that they're dead. They realize that they've died, and that's how they feel. So this second bottle highlights seeing hallucinations from their life. They can either be good or bad hallucinations. So while you're in this stage, this ultimately, it could be a turning point for you, because when you're seeing these hallucinations, you could kind of get immersed into the reality, and you're seeing this directly from your body. Something, you might realize something that you haven't realized when you were living, and this may lead to liberation. Or let's say you did bad things, you have bad hallucinations. This may make you go crazy, and you may be born into a lesser realm just because of that. So then we're going to the third bottle. So the third bottle, this is the final stage where one either becomes liberated or reincarnated into another life. Alright, and like I said earlier, not all schools of Buddhism teach this, but a lot certainly do. Alright, so moving on. So in Buddhism, it's very important to make every moment count. Let me go over the text. Death has important religious meaning to Buddhism. It marks the moment when new life begins through rebirth. For those left behind, it is a powerful reminder of Buddha's teaching. Every Buddhist must be prepared for death, because it can happen at any time. Because of this, it is important to make every moment count. Human birth is precious, and life has great value. When death is near, Buddhists are taught to think about their holy writings. Giving one's final thoughts to Buddha and his teachings brings good luck to a new existence. Alright, so I know Buddhists really preach about being mindful and being present and just aware about where they are, living in the present, while not being attached to the past or being attached to the future. So just making every moment count, because life is precious and you can be gone at any time. And also what I said earlier, when you know you're about to die, if you do know you're about to die, you could give your final thoughts to Buddha, maybe recite some holy writings. And in doing this, maybe you get good luck or be born into a higher realm. But yes, this just does represent good religious merit, and that you are a good Buddhist as well. Alright, so this is a long slide, but I think it's my favorite one because it's very interesting. So we're going to be talking about the 6 realms. So the 6 realms represent all possible states of existence. Life in any of these realms are ultimately impermanent. One does not suffer forever in hell, nor does one enjoy eternal bliss in heaven. Birth in any of these realms is based on one's karma. Good actions bring good results, and bad actions bring bad results. Alright, so if you put out good in the world, you will be born into a good world. You put out bad, you'll be born to a bad one. Alright, so these 6 realms are labeled. So the heavenly realm. To be born in heaven, one must spend a big amount of time on religious merit. Life in heaven is continuous pleasure with no suffering. Life in heaven is approximately 30,000 years. However, one must inevitably leave to take birth in another realm. So there are some downsides to this realm. It is constant pleasure, and pleasure is a drug. So people do get addicted to this pleasure, and they learn to forget what suffering is really like. But just like any other realm, you do have to take your leave in this realm, and this happens with every realm. Alright, and then moving on, so this is the Asura realm. Asuras are powerful but immoral beings. Some say that they are demigods. Alright, so these beings are driven by envy and greed, and birth in this realm is not desirable. It's a realm highlighted of war and destruction and just violence. So I seen on the wheel earlier that in this realm the Buddha was carrying a sword, so that says a lot about this realm. Alright, and then this animal realm. So this animal realm is interesting. So animal birth is seen as a result of past sins. So animal behavior is all from instincts. So this means an animal cannot generate good karma. They can only work off the bad karma that they committed in their past lives. So yeah, this is basically, let's say you're a dog. Everything is instinct. Or a deer, everything is instinct. You can't generate good karma. You can't pick what you want to do. So basically, you either spend your life working it off, hunting, or maybe if you're a chicken, you have to die maybe a couple of times. But birth in this realm is very undesirable. All right, and then hell realm, this is the most undesirable. So in this hell realm, one is punished for one's evil actions. So you must have been very evil to be born in hell. So this may be people that kill people, rob people, things like that. So in this hell realm, this realm highlights suffering in a variety of ways, such as hunger, thirst, torture, dismemberment, and so on. It's a whole lot of suffering. So this suffering can last up to 60,000 years. But after one's term is up, like any other realm, you will leave and you will most likely be born into a higher realm than hell. Yes, all right, in the ghost realm, it is not highlighted for some reason, but the ghost realm. So this, along with hell, is not a good realm to be in. So this is a result of their past misdeeds and their past evil actions. All right, so this realm highlights torment from hunger and thirst. So this may be the realm for greedy people that always want to eat. They're very stingy with their money. They're very stingy in giving, and all they want, they just want. And so basically, you will be born in the world, but you will be a ghost. You'll be a ghost. You can't eat. You can't drink. You'll be forever hungry, forever thirsty. And you may see people that you know before. You will exist with them, but they won't see you there. They won't be able to acknowledge you. They won't be able to help you. And it's a very lonely realm that is very, very depressing. All right. And in this human realm, so this human realm is the most desirable. So this is the most desirable even over heaven. And that's kind of weird. But in this realm, it's the realm where one is completely in control. All right, so this is the realm where you're in control. This is the only realm where one's choices will affect their future. So one's present condition is based on one's past karma, but one's present choices also determine one's future. Moral action and spiritual development is key in this realm. So yes, this is the human realm, the one we're living in right now, and we are in control. So we may have, okay, so let's say we had some bad karma accumulated from our past life. We may be born into poverty. We may be born, with economic problems, family problems, but that doesn't matter. So you're born into that, but in this realm, you are completely in control. So if you want a better future, you could definitely make a better future for yourself. If you want to generate a lot of good karma, you can commit to living a life and generating good karma, being a good person. Or you could also be a bad person, maybe a killer or something like that. But in this realm, you are completely in control. So this is one of the most important realms, and it's very important and very desirable, even though life is suffering. All right, so we're going to move on. And here is a wheel right here, and this highlights all of the realms. All right, cool. Moving on. So the Bodhisattva, we're going to review the Bodhisattva. So Bodhisattvas, they are enlightened beings who postpone their own salvation in order to help all sentient beings. The Bodhisattva is an ideal type. It's not a historical person like the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, or it could be many of them. You could be one if you wanted to be. But yeah, so anybody with dedication and the right amount of religious merit can become a Bodhisattva. So Bodhisattvas are sometimes compared to Christian saints. They are all compassionate figures that have generated a good amount of religious merit, and they want to help worshipers reach that too, and have an answer to their questions. So Bodhisattvas have achieved a high level of enlightenment, and without this, you will not be able to be one. Alright, so this definition of bodhisattvas. Alright, so where we left off. So this definition of bodhisattvas is particularly from the Mahayana Buddhism sector. And Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism do have a lot of differences. But like we said earlier, so a bodhisattva, anybody can become one. So if one would like to become one, they would have to dedicate their life to religious merit, helping people, and just becoming enlightened and giving back. No attachment to any desires, things like that. But yeah, so bodhisattvas aren't any gods or anything to be worshipped, but rather like a teacher or somebody to learn from, because they have became enlightened and all they want to do is help the rest of the world become enlightened as well, thus ending this suffering. Yes. Alright, so we're going to dive into nirvana and enlightenment. So nirvana is the state of final liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. Some may describe nirvana to be a state of nothingness. Alright, so nirvana is not a place or a state, but simply the end of rebirth. So nothing. Alright, so nirvana is the main goal of most Buddhists. And to reach this, the Eightfold Path is the path that one should take to attain enlightenment and reach nirvana. Enlightenment and nirvana are different. Okay, so nirvana is the end of the rebirth, end of samsara, end to suffering. However, enlightenment, it is an intellectual understanding. It's an intuitive knowing. It's a total transformation of the heart and the mind. So just a complete elevation of one's whole self. So just enlightened, being enlightened, yes. So, yes, nirvana is just the end to life, and life is suffering, so that does mean the end of suffering. And this is why many Buddhism's goal is to reach this, because Buddhism was built off the fact that life is suffering, and so this is the solution to that. Alright, so we're going to compare Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. So these are the two major schools of Buddhism, Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism. There are other sectors that fall between these two, but these are the main ones. And yes, there are many sectors of Buddhism. But so these schools are the same teachings of Buddha, but expressed differently. Alright, so Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism is primarily in the north. So this means maybe Tibet, China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Mongolia, and some parts of Southeast Asia. So their teaching more highlights the idea that an aspirant should not seek just personal enlightenment, but the enlightenment of all beings. So Mahayana Buddhism, they really want to give back and help everybody escape this suffering. So that means it will be more than just meditation and personal discipline, but it will be selfless service and working in the world for the benefit of others. Alright, so the goal of religion. So this goal of the religion is to fulfill the destiny and the path of a bodhisattva. It's to find enlightenment and inner peace with oneself. But however, Buddhism, ultimately, the ultimate goal is to reach nirvana. Alright, so Theravada Buddhism is more of southern. So this may be Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Laos, Cambodia, and some parts of Southeast Asia. Alright, so their teaching is to promote the concept of Vibhajavada. So this is the teaching of analysis. So this suggests that the seeker should gain insights from his own experience, application of knowledge, and critical reasoning. So this is basically they'll provide you the layout. They'll give you the blueprint to what you need to do, and they'll give you the knowledge. But this teaching does highlight self-discipline and self-teaching. So going through life and just learning everything by themselves, and just seeing what's wrong with them, what they can do, how they can elevate and evolve and become enlightened and better. Alright, so the goal of this religion is to deliver their mind, becoming an arahant and freeing oneself from this bondage called samsara, which is reincarnation. However, It means almost the same thing, but ultimately, again, the end goal of Buddhism is to reach nirvana and end this suffering. Alright, so here's the Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path is the path that one should follow if they want to become a bodhisattva, or if they do want to reach this enlightenment and escape reincarnation. So first off, right speech. So right speech means just be careful with what you say. Do not lie. Do not say hurtful words to hurt others. Always be mindful of what you're saying, and listen more, speak a little bit less. Alright, and then the right action. So do not harm other beings. Help them, love them. Do not do any actions that might harm somebody, like especially killing or robbing or anything that brings pain. Alright, so also have the right livelihood. So do not pick a career where you're chopping up meat. You're a butcher or a hunter, things like that. So have a moral career that respects all beings, all living beings. Alright, so moving on, right effort. So make sure that you always have a good amount of effort. So you need to put an effort into being self-disciplined, put effort into always growing, becoming more enlightened every single day, and just always have a pure mind, effort, intention, and yeah. So moving on, right mindfulness. So always be mindful, always be aware of your surroundings, and just live in the present. If you are able to detach from the desires and attachments of life, then that'd be great. But just make sure to control your thoughts. Don't let them control you, and just learn to let go of those attachments and desires. All right, so right concentration. So right concentration, you should train your mind, and you should do this by practicing meditation and just elevating your mind to become more powerful and more enlightened. All right, and then the right view, just know the truth, know what life really means, know that life is suffering, and just understand the Four Noble Truths and review them and just have a good understanding of them. All right, and then we have the right intention. So right intention, you should always have pure intentions, not any evil thoughts or you say one thing but you really want another thing, and just free your mind from all of these evil thoughts and become a very pure and clear person. All right, and we have the wheel over here, and this is all of them. All right, so moving on. So karma. So according to Buddhism, everything that happens is the result of karma. This is the law of cause and effect. The way a person lives his or her life also affects the way they die. So it's very important for a Buddhist to prepare for death by living in a good and kind manner. This is how they can achieve calmness and control at their time of death. So yes, karma, it makes everything go around. You put good in, you get good out. Put bad out, you get bad in. Bad in, you get bad out. But yeah, basically everything revolves around this: where you are in your next life, where you are currently, where you will be in the next life, and it works in the present life as well. So I mean, let's say you do a bad deed, you're doing illegal things. Of course, like karma will get you back, and what goes around does come around. And Buddhism is just really based on this. So it's important to always put good out. All right, and for the funeral customs. So when somebody dies, memorial services are held on the 17th, 50th, and 100th day after death. So this is a more traditional funeral, and maybe not all Buddhists follow it, but this is a very formal funeral. So on the day of cremation, a man carrying a white banner on a long pole leads the procession to the place where cremation is to take place. Next, a group of 8 to 10 holy men or monks, they will hold a broad ribbon that extends to the casket behind them. During the ceremony at the cemetery, monks sit facing the casket and lead the mourners in song-like prayers, so chants, things like that. So the casket is then placed on a brick structure, and friends and family throw lit candles, incense, and wood behind the casket to start burning it. After this cremation, the spirit is cut off from our world, and all we have is this body. All right. So later on, the ashes are collected and kept in a container called an urn. Yes. So a Buddhist funeral is a serious and dignified ceremony. So those left behind share their grief and learn to live a new life without this loved one. All right, so like I said, this version of a funeral is very traditional and very Buddhist, and yes, yeah. So they take this death seriously, and many times they may bring fruits and offerings and essential things like maybe even a phone to so that they could have this in the next life and good luck in the next life, so they won't be hungry in the next life. So they'll bring apples or bread, things like that. All right, and this is something that the Japanese do. It's called Obon. So the Japanese Buddhist tradition, Obon or Bon, is a season when the living commemorate, honor, and celebrate the spirits of family members who have passed. So families visit and clean grave sites during this time of remembrance. Bon Odori group dances that express joy for departed souls are performed in traditional colorful kimonos with lit lanterns overhead, which serve as beacons to the deceased to come and join the celebration. So they kind of call the spirits back, and they just want everybody to celebrate and coexist and live for one day, even if it's not that. So yes, this is a Japanese tradition, and they will take care of the grave sites, and yes. All right, so we are going to compare Christianity and Buddhism. So I chose these two because they are two big world religions that do have both some similarities, but a lot of big differences. All right, so the two big world religions. So in Christianity, one must worship and believe in only one God, or they will be punished or have to repent. So in Buddhism, they don't believe in a God or a deity. Like even Siddhartha Gautama himself, he became a Buddha, but he was a regular person that just became enlightened. All right, so Christians, they must repent for their sins and their wrongdoings, or they will be sent to hell or be punished. All right, but Buddhists do not have to repent at all. Instead, they will accumulate bad karma that will catch up to them later on in life. So yeah. All right, but in conclusion, Buddhism seems to be definitely the more lenient religion, and it highlights more self-discipline, self-awareness, and helps to enlighten one's mind, body, and soul. All right, so the conclusion. So the conclusion is that Buddhism does believe that after death is simply the beginning of another life. Buddhists have accepted the fact that all life is suffering. As long as we exist, there will be suffering. So one is reincarnated into one of 6 realms, depending on their karma. And to stop rebirth, one must reach total enlightenment and enter nirvana. But to reach nirvana, one must spend an enormous time in religious merit while becoming enlightened. And there are many different schools of Buddhism, highlighting different traditions, funeral customs, and just a different way of doing things and teaching things. But ultimately, the goal is to reach nirvana. So yes, this is my citations, and this is the end of my final presentation. Thank you for a great semester, and I hope you are blessed. Continue to receive blessings for the rest of your life. Thank you. Bye-bye.